You're listening to Parts and Charts. I'm Chelsea Owens, a therapist certified in internal family systems, and my co-host, KP Kajabowski, is an astrologer. We're testing the theory that IFS and astrology are mapping the same inner territory. Every episode, we put that to the test. Glad you're here. Hello, welcome. We have a really fun new guest on today. I'm so excited. We're going to speak with an herbalist astrologer. Hi, Meg.
Hello.
Welcome. Hello.
Thank you for having me. We
Thanks
were
for
chatting
being
before, and this is
here.
already so fun.
Already so fun. Do you want to give us just like a little snippet about yourself? Maybe a little like quick, what do we need to know about you? And
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. As you said, I'm an astrologer and an herbalist. I see clients one-on-one. That's like the bulk of what I do, but I also do quite a bit of writing and some teaching, a little bit of mentorship stuff as well. And I specialize in the fifth house, which is something I think we all could definitely talk about because I know that there's some lovers of creativity and art making here. But the fifth house I've had a special reading about that for, I don't know, going on 3 or 4 years now. And I'm also someone who specializes in the fixed stars, which is not super common, but sort of getting the whole sky back versus just the ecliptic. Not that the ecliptic isn't special, but when you look up at the night sky, there's a lot in there that's not in standard astrology, and we get to talk about it. So I think that covers it for the most part. That's what I do.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. I really wanted Meg to come on for probably 1,000 reasons, but this episode we can focus on making the sky tangible and like connecting to the body and our experience as we are concepting or connecting to the data of where the planets are and what they're doing. And that's like what we're doing with this podcast too, is Chelsea and I are connecting IFS parts work to the planets or other parts of the zodiac and stuff like that, so that we can fully experience what is happening inside of us. So I really want to get your perspective on like how it felt to work with plant matter or plants and herbs while also practicing astrology or making connections with astrology.
Yeah. So astrology and herbalism more or less like co-arose together. Like working with plants, people have been doing that since prehistory, and paying attention to the stars and noticing patterns and seeing what it might mean about weather or agriculture or politics or eventually even like individual people's lives. That is also extremely, extremely old. I think our earliest records of plant, star, planet combination stuff is like 400 BCE or so, but I'm sure it's older. It's just like that's the record that we have. And most people who were practicing medicine were practicing it with plants, like most of the global contemporary world does right now. And we're doing so alongside watching stellar omens. And so for me, I was really excited that two interests I had at the same time already had this like close history together, and I didn't have to be a Mercurian Gemini person and like take two disparate things and put them together. They were already together. But when I started reading about like the correspondences that are written down, I was so confused. I don't know if either of you have ever looked up like what a plant, like, oh, like, I don't know, like hawthorn is a Mars plant. And I was like, really? Why? Like, is it just that it has thorns? Rose has thorns, and you're saying that rose is a Venus plant. Explain yourself. And it's very difficult to find anyone really explaining it. You have to almost like backward design it in your mind. And so I was fed up with it. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is so frustrating. I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. You two will be separated once more in my brain. And then I took a course called Celeste Natura, which isn't running anymore, but it was with Sarah Corbett, who runs Rowan and Sage and is a really wonderful teacher still on astroherbalism stuff. And also Diana Rose Harper, who's a pretty well-known astrologer. And they kind of combined forces to teach, like, how do you think about correspondences? And I was like, this is the thing I've been waiting for. Like, this is incredible. And it really just like opened things up for me. And I feel like I now can come to my own understanding of how the plants and the planets speak to each other. And a lot of it comes from like a Neoplato cosmology, as well as there are other models for this that are less white Western canon stuff. Not that, I mean, a lot of those philosophers weren't white, but that's another conversation. Things that white culture claims, we'll call it that. But there is an idea that everything in the heavens cascades down into the earth. And so all of us are built out of things from the heavens. And it's just like this ladder of connection and affinity and relationship. And so the same way that any of us are made up of our birth chart, like I'm full of Mercury and Venus and Mars in different inflections. So are the plants, so are stones. So is like the garbage on my street. So is a book. And like to different mixtures is like the language they would use. And so you're always interacting with Jupiter and Venus and Saturn and all of them all the time. And if you're trying to get to know one of the planets really well, you can go to a being or a thing that is very of that planet and be like, what can you tell me about the thing you're mostly made out of, you know? And so I found that really grounding as a air sign and earth sign person. Like I needed astrology to feel more physical for me to really get into it. And so that connection like made me really fall in love with astrology much more deeply than I already was. So that's my long thing.
Yes.
Did
I'm-
you
Go ahead.
come to, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but I'm curious to just hear more about kind of how your journey kind of came to plants and then came to planets and what that all felt like and what it looked like. I mean, maybe first how you came to just plants and herbalism.
Yeah, herbalism came for me. I did not grow up as like an outdoor person. I did not grow up gardening. Nothing. No green thumb over here. Not even a little. But I remember being sick before a trip and going to the doctor and them saying something like, just take Advil. And something about it was just like the last straw for me with like friends with chronic illness. This was such a minor thing. This was nothing. This was like a cold and they were just like basically waited out. And I was like, surely there's more I can do. And I started looking up just like home remedies and learned about like lemon and garlic and things that like my ancestors did all the time. And that just turned into like classes and buying way too much wormwood because I just liked the name of it and not realizing how bitter it was because I was like, oh, Artemis, great. And making really, really bad elixirs that you could not get down. Like, and then like taking courses and then taking it more seriously and getting more rigorous training in both like personal practice style herbalism as well as clinical herbalism. So that's the plant stuff.
Cool.
Astrology was sort of a casual interest. I really came to it from like a modern astrology perspective because that's like what was available to me. And I thought it was like cute. I was like, oh, personality result. I love a personality test. This is great. I've liked different types of typology my whole life. I was like embarrassingly big into Myers-Briggs when I was in high school. And I was just like, yeah, it's another one of those. It was really only when I learned more about neo-Hellenistic astrology and learned about like whole sign houses and things like that. Things started just to like click in a new way. And I remember specifically, I know exactly where I was. I was like walking down this huge steep hill to my apartment with my partner. And like we were having this conversation and like I realized like I have Mercurian Gemini and they have the moon in Gemini. And so when I am like talking and processing at them, they already feel that way on the inside. And it made me feel so much more like understanding and compassion. And I was like, man, this stuff is potent. Like this is really, really meaningful, you know? And then it just sort of spun out from there and became a complete obsession where I was like downloading videos to watch on the subway on my way to work. And it has not taken its fangs out of me since. So
my Venus is in Gemini, so I just love hearing you speak. Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm just like, yes, I'm just like eating up everything you're saying.
How did you guys get into astrology? I'm curious. Chelsea?
Yeah, KP? I mean, gosh, yeah, that's a good question. I should actually reflect on that and go back. I think I've always been a little curious more in my adult life than in my younger life. And I think I just kind of did more deep dives in the last maybe we'll say 10-ish years. And I've had random chart readings here and there, but I think really when I became better friends with KP, did I really kind of take this seriously. and learned beyond just my sun sign and rising sign. And so she's really helped me quite a bit. Yeah.
Sweet. I feel like when I met you, you were like so well versed in all of the intricate like energetics of every sign and planet. So
Oh.
you fooled me. Like you're just like, you're an energy reader at like the most ancient
That's it.
level. And I think
Mhm.
that that's the beginnings of a really great astrologer.
Hmm.
I
Thanks.
it's hard to describe where I came to it. I might be showing my whole ass, but it was like, I think I was like 8 or 9 when I was at the library and there was like a astrology 101 kind of book. And I was also into typing people like as a very young child. And I think it started because I have a lot of very strange personalities in my family to the point of confusion.
Yeah.
And I think it was just like my border collie heart was trying to like understand the people around me and it wouldn't stop. And there was something really soothing and exciting at the same time with astrology because it didn't choose who you were. It helped think how you were. And then you could think about how other people were as well. And like as a teenager, I was accused of like typing people, but I never felt like I was like, I can't be a friend with a whatever, like a Leo Venus or whatever. Though I do know it's part of my anxiety expression that when I'm starting to get to know someone, learning their signs helps me like be a better friend, or at least I think that's true. So that's like that's the wave undercurrent of how I came to it. But it wasn't until I was like maybe 23 or 24 where like truly started reading the text. And then I was very shy about like doing sessions with people. It was Chelsea and a couple of our book club friends who were like, no, you're very good at this. You have to offer this. I'm like, okay, like $10, like that kind of thing. So pretty Capricorn rising, late bloomer style. So yeah, that's how I came to it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. What you both were saying was reminding me of like a couple of things. One is like how much astrology can be like a barrier to relationship if you do the thing where you're like, oh, you're a Gemini? Huh? Like I'm assuming a bunch of things about you. You can do it with literally any. Actually, very briefly had a reading called "So You Think You Hate That Sign."
Ooh.
Almost no one took me up on it because people love to hate other signs, but they don't actually want to talk about like why that might be wrong. It was not a very good pitch, but the idea was just like whatever sign you feel the most uncomfortable with for whatever reason, that's still in your chart. Let's talk about the let's recomplexify it because it's going to help you actually, even if like I also have signs where I'm like, I have one story of one person and I've decided that I can simplify all of it by being like, they're this sign, like I get it. I'm not immune, but also it can be such a beautiful connector. Like it can be a bid for control or like a bid for understanding other humans better or for worse. But it can also be like, I think we all know intellectually that we're super different from each other, but it's very hard when you're in conflict with someone, when someone's stressing you out, when you want to be close, but you can't seem to get there, to be like, why aren't you doing it the way I would do it?
Totally.
And I think astrology and also there are other modalities that do this, but I think astrology is really good at being like, but remember their approach is this thing. And that's why maybe they're coming at it differently than you would have. And it creates that space that can be really, really useful for not trying to like, especially for those of us, speaking of showing our ass, who might be prone to like enmeshment or codependence. It can be helpful to put that little bit of difference between and like honor it a little bit, or at least like be like, even if I don't know what them having an Aries moon means, I know that it's not my moon. And maybe that means I don't know everything about what's going on. And I can't assume what they meant by what they said or what that action was. I should just like, I don't know, ask them instead.
Right? Yeah. I think we should do this. We should have a whole episode or something workshop where I love that idea because I think we could heal the world that way and be like, because we just need more understanding of other people and difference, of course. But in IFS, we call that a U-turn, like a I guess like YOU turn. So it's like when someone's kind of coming in, maybe you're complaining about your partner and you're like, oh my gosh, they didn't do X, Y, and Z, or, you know, they're so annoying. We encourage that the person to do a U-turn. So you're just looking back at yourself. How are you showing up? What's this response or this reaction? What parts of you are having that reaction and response? And what's underneath that? Like what's actually getting so activated right now? Probably some younger part of you that's like, you know, had something happen, right? Or felt this way with your parents, right? So there's so much more information there, which is like why, you know, when we get activated about other people, it's always something about, you know, yourself, right? It's something you don't love about yourself, or you're still, you know, trying to heal, or there's just something inside of you that is like, nope, we don't like this about ourselves, but we're going to just, you know, make it seem like it's about somebody else. Yeah. So I love that. And then
That,
using the plants. Yep. Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, based on what you just said, it's reminding me of, and I'm curious as a fellow astrologer, KP, what you think about this, but it just reminds me of like the mess of the seventh house, like this idea that like the seventh is a place of the other. It's the place of the other who's beloved. It's the place of the other who's like abject and difficult, or like triggering you for some reason, or accusing you but just by existing. It's the enemy in some way, which is also like often a projection of some kind. And it is like a complementary opposite in terms of the zodiac signs of the first house, which is you. And you can't really disentangle them. And I think like a lot of times when we're in we're trying to come to understanding, or we're deeply not trying to come to understanding. We're like, get that person away from me. Yeah. They're wrong. I'm good. They're bad. That kind of thinking, like the U-turn you're describing, is really, really important. And even if people, like, it's not always just like your triggers and what you're upset about. It can be like, no, that was really hurtful. Just flat out, that was hurtful. Yeah. But I think that even when you're hurt, how are you responding, and what's getting kicked up is a loop between the two people. It's rarely just like that person over there. And you can learn a lot about yourself by those like kind of weird, uncomfortable mirrors that I think that turn you're describing does. And also I think it's just like, it's literally built into the chart as well.
Yes. I know also Chelsea and I we have significant placements in the seventh house too.
Yeah.
And that we are being magnetized toward like one-on-one client work too. That's what I'm thinking. Like, it's great to hold space for someone and like also understand that you are receiving projections. You are also projecting at this, like, it's full of dynamism, whether you're aware of it in the moment or not. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm curious to hear more about your work with the fifth house and how you came to that, and how that, just kind of maybe explaining to anyone who wouldn't know much about the fifth house, and how you work with it and what feels juicy and important about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that I approach astrology is that it can be used very effectively as a psychological tool where all the planets can reflect parts of us, which I'm sure feels familiar to this podcast. And that the planets are also their own beings that are separate from us while being connected, and that we can relate to them as like big, big, big spirits who have physical, astronomical bodies. And that the chart is your life, not just you. And so it has like this ecology to it where it's like, it's not just your personality, it's also events and the people you'll meet, the experiences you'll have, as well as like patterning that anyone would come to an astrologer for, to be like, how come I keep ending up stuck doing this same thing over and over again, even though I don't want to? So with that in mind, the fifth house is a part of the chart. Its oldest association is actually with children. Like, it's not about your childhood, but like literally the kids you'll have. But it also became about generativeness in general, like, and the erotic in general. So it's not just the children, but the force of life that creates all kinds of things in your life besides other humans. And so it's Venus's favorite house, no matter where she is in the chart or what sign coincides with that particular part of the chart. She loves it there. And I think that helps kind of ground like what that place is. It's joy, it's pleasure, it's playfulness, it's the creative. Like, there are other parts of the chart that have to do with creativity. I don't even think you can really locate creativity only in one house. But like in terms of like, I just want to meet the thing that makes me want to unfurl and make and reach out in some way to the world. I have so much life in me, it has to come out somehow. That's the fifth house for me. And so I was seeing a lot of clients who were not coming to me for a fifth house reading. They were just coming to me for a regular reading, but we would keep talking about the barriers to this place and how surprisingly vulnerable it is. Like, it has all like the best, I think, the best words that life has to offer. And yet people would be like, really like, yeah, it is really, really hard when I can't get to that place. And it's really hard to be in that place because there's a million reasons to have a hard time accessing joy. Hi. But also like, playfulness is so vulnerable. Like, there's so many stories we have about how we're like, cannot tell you the number of clients I've sat with who like can't make art. I mean, they can, but they're not making art because they're still hearing their parents be like, don't waste those art supplies. They're really expensive. You know, like people who went to art school and it just like killed their creative flow and process completely. Like, people who've taken a long break, maybe even because of a fifth house reason, like pregnancy and early parenthood, who are coming back to having a little bit more spaciousness in their lives. And they're like, who am I now? What am I going to write the same book I was writing before I had this kid? Like, I have no idea. And also like people who do creative work for a living, which is supposed to be the dream, but it totally changes their relationship to that work because of the money stuff and the visibility stuff and the reputation stuff and the pressure. And so I was already seeing that in client work, and I was like, we gotta make this like a specific focused thing. And I also was deep in like my own devotional practice to Dionysus, and he was just like, I have opinions about this part of the house. I will be the patron of this reading.
Cool.
And so that's my most popular reading. I've been giving it for a while and I love it. And actually there is a visualization component that's completely optional at the end, which, having listened to this podcast before, I also know that visualizations there's a space for those here as well in this space. And so there's a little bit of overlap with our work there.
Gosh. That's so amazing. Now I want to look at like all of my clients' fifth houses. It's because I just encounter so many people in art therapy groups and in individual work that have so many adults who have so many blocks to letting themselves create, and there's just so much there to heal, to even get to the point of like looking at a blank piece of paper and just making a mark, like,
it's terrifying.
Sometimes the most basic stuff. And I'm like, wow, there's so much there. Yeah. So fifth house would be so helpful to know. I'm curious if you have some placements in your fifth, or
do.
who rules your fifth house?
Yeah. It's the same guy. It's Saturn in Capricorn ruling the house. And part of the reason why this reading is really important to me is because having Saturn as the guy who stewards your joy is a weird fit. And I have learned a lot. Like, part of why I give this reading is because this is not an area that I just find really easy either. Like, I think there's like a version of, I give a reading because I'm masterful in this part of my life. Like, good luck. And then there's a version that's like, I give a reading about this because I am in here with you. And that's very much my approach. It's a very Mercury, like, I'm alongside you, man. Like, I get it. And so that is my placement. And I will also say to anyone listening to this and you're like, I want a creative life. I'm a creative. I want joy and I have nothing in my fifth house. You're fine. I promise. Having an empty fifth house does not mean you are empty of joy or play or creation. I really emphasize the ruler of the fifth house first and foremost, as well as any planets that are also in the place. But the ruler is really where it's at. So, and everybody has one of those. So do not panic.
Chelsea, your ruler is Jupiter.
Yeah. Right. Because Leo.
And I have Uranus there too, right? I think. But Venus is opposing my fifth house because she's in the 11th.
Well,
she's opposing Uranus in your fifth house too. Yeah. Just exciting.
I also have a Uranus Venus
Really?
That's so cool.
Wow. Love that.
I'm jealous. I'm excited by that.
Really?
Maybe I shouldn't get jealous, but it looks fun.
No, it's pretty good. I like it.
I'm curious. We talked about remediation before we started recording, so we should talk about what that means. But how would you approach that concept with the fifth house?
Well, remediation. Okay, I should back up. I don't explicitly offer what I think of as like professional remediation, because I think of that as a really rigorous process that is studied for a long time and actually is like most robust in the Jyotish tradition. We have some of it in, God, what can I call us? Because I really hate calling us Western astrology. It's such a terrible name. It's not correct. The astrology that isn't Chinese or Jyotish, that comes out of primarily Mesopotamia and then beyond, which is the Middle East, which is not also a good name either. It's out of the Swana region. God, we're bad at names. But there is stuff you can do that like venerates the planets, which they really like. And you also can just get to know your planets better, which I do think is magic. I think that it actually makes an impact in your life to get to know the planet itself, just like as an inherent being, and then also the planet as its sort of fractal part in your chart, specifically the way that it's showing up in your life, in your body. It can make pretty significant change. And there are a bunch of ways to do that. You can do devotional, kind of like a devotional work where you light a candle on the day of the planets, because all the planets have days of the week. You can leave out offerings. You basically treat them like lowercase g gods, because they kind of are. And you hang out. You can read hymns, you can do things, you can find poems that you think kind of speak to them. There's lots of different ways to do this. It can feel really awkward and goofy. I feel awkward and goofy when I do it, but it's also worth it. Alternatively, or alongside that, plants are really good ambassadors of the planets. And so if you really want to get to know Jupiter, let's say, as the ruler of your fifth house, can be like, well, I'm going to hang out with sage. That is a Jupiter plant. What can sage teach me about Jupiter? If Jupiter is lending his attributes to this plant, what can I learn about this plant's stories, its ecology, biology, how it collaborates with the human body? What is it like to grow it? But there's also like lots of options. You can do lemon balm. You can sit under an oak tree. Like these are all, just have a feast. Jupiter loves fatty foods and an overladen table. So enjoy. Having Jupiter as the planet that you're trying to get to know is a lot of fun. But yeah, so like I remember trying to get to know Saturn a bit better. And I did like a pretty extensive journey time. I don't mean like journeying, although that too, with blackberry. Both like eating blackberries on Saturdays, which is when they were sort of in season, which is Saturn's day. But also like I went to a berry farm and sat with a blackberry plant for a while. Nice. And I did a lot of research about the folklore and different uses, and especially through like my own ancestral lines and stuff like that. So focusing on, for example, like Irish stories about blackberry. And that was like, that taught me a lot about that planet, that like isn't just like me reading Vedic balance, which is also great, but it's not the only way.
I'm really responding to this because blackberry is a sweet, like bittersweet fruit, and it's also a boundary plant that keeps certain things apart, but it doesn't kill anything. Just like it'll give you a little sting. It'll hurt a little bit if you try to pass through it, which is,
you can't go fast.
Saturn. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to like take the berries gently.
Yeah.
You can't just like throw a hand in and grab it. And it also is like a plant that tiny animals hide in, which is really cute. And in herbalism, one of its primary uses is if there's like diarrhea, because it helps to like create fortification and tighten like lax tissue, which is one of the things Saturn's really good at, is like reforming loose structure in the body so that there's like a way to not sort of accidentally spill out and empty out in this way.
Can we just keep nerding out on plants for a little bit?
Oh, for sure. Yes, all day, every day.
Yes.
When I did my little herbalism certification, there's so much that I learned, of course, but like what I had no clue about were like tissue states, which felt like amazing information to just know like how yeah, like my internal tissues and what different plants, how they're helping my, like I'm so dry on inside. And I had no idea that there's different things I can do to kind of balance that out. And energetics, like had no idea. I mean, I think I knew it like maybe intuitively, of course plants are alive and they have energy, but the variety and range of energetics that they can bring, I was just like, oh my God, this is like we're really blending the magic with science here, and it's so beautiful and of course so hopeful. And I love that you mentioned Hawthorne earlier because when I was in that training, well, I first had a really big connection to Tulsi and had never worked with it before. And then that summer I was just taking infusions like every day, every day, every day. And I felt amazing. And I was like, oh, this is my plant. Like I really have a strong connection to Tulsi now. But during that time, I also had a dream. I don't remember really the context of the dream. I just remember that Hawthorne came to me in that dream and basically was like, work with me. And I had not worked with Hawthorne at all. Didn't even know what it was before that. So that was the one plant that came to me in the dream space and was really clear and really loud. And so then I kind of started working with it and learned like, oh, it's really great for the heart. And it's just like a love. I needed that like love balm at the time. It was kind of a rough. Oh, no, that wasn't when I was 35. I was going to say that was my 12th house year, but yeah, it was a rough time, like relationship wise. And I had a little bit of heartache during that time. So I think that's why Hawthorne came to me to help and still love it. So hearing that it's a Mercury plant, that's really interesting to me.
Oh, well, Hawthorne, I would say is a Venus plant.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Personally, but it's tricky because it is also a thorny guy. And so some people say like the thorns are of Mars and the berries and the flowers are Venus. And there's lots of ways that you can like think about this where you say like the overall plant is under the auspices of this particular planet, but different pieces, like in general, Saturn rules roots. In general, Mars will rule the defenses of a plant. In general, Venus rules all flowers. Because it's like the reproductive part of the and it's like the sweet smelling and all the nice stuff. But I think overall people disagree. They'll say like Hawthorne is like a Mars and Venus, which I think is a really beautiful way to talk about Hawthorne because it does have that like heartache protective quality while still being soft and like supportive more so than it is fully like a boundary. It's like, it doesn't keep things out. It's just like, again, you can't just grab at me, which is, I think, a very sort of either Mars and Venus or an expression of Venus that's very confident, And I don't really personally get super particular about these correspondences. Like, I think people have like really fierce debates about what is what. And I'm kind of like, I assume that the plants are as complicated as we are and we have all the planets in us. And it's possible that, like, I think does like making these connections enrich your relationship with the plant and the planet, then I'm golden. Like, I think that's fine. I think there are some, like, you do have to like reason it out and have like, not just be like, I've decided that peppermint's a solar plant. I'm like, why? But I don't get too fussy about it. And even blackberry, a lot of like either ultimately the older texts say it's a Venus plant, partly because it's like a rose family plant and the sweetness of the berry, right? But it's so astringent and it has that boundary stuff. And it's considered often like a double plant, which is associated often with the malefics. And so I think it's Saturn. That's my pitch for that.
Oh, okay.
But again, it's not like canon, and that's what I mean by people can disagree. It's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly why I wanted you on this podcast, is because like essence, like if you're resonating with whatever you're working with, then that's the relationship. And you get to have your individual relationship, just like my relationship with my brother is different than his relationship with my mom. That's how I want to view herbs, plants and planets and houses and cars and trash, like you said. I want to have relationships.
It
Yeah.
is, and I think it matters like what people have done throughout history. Like I think that the meanings, like the plant is, how do I put this? This isn't literally true, I don't think. But as like a metaphor, I feel like the plants learn by us continually working with them from the perspective of like, you're this type of plant. They're like, I guess I am. I feel like this is just like an idea in witchcraft and in magic in general, which is like, if people keep doing a thing, there's something powerful in that, even if it starts out with no particular like grounding in reality. Like there's something about like, we've made it real, you know? And so I care about the historical texts and what people have been doing over and over. And I care a lot about living traditions and folk ways and like what people have been doing. But like across global traditions, people don't use plants exactly the same way. You know, they have, and there's so many different species. Like you're dealing with such like a mix of locale and weather and climate change and like the plants that I read in Pliny the Elder is not like his sage is not my sage, you know? And like it's still it's still useful to know what he thought and what people in that period were thinking. And I still look it up, but I also think we have to keep changing things and creating from where we are right now. And it's really easy, especially with astrology, which is such an insecure industry in terms of like trying to prove that it has value and that it's a science or something, which is not my bag actually. But like that desire, we keep like referencing like these ancient texts that I love. I deeply love them. But if like we're trying to build everything based on just replicating what the ancients did, I think we're going to be missing what the ancients were doing. And I put ancients in scare quotes for people listening because they were inventing in real time too, you know? And so I agree. I think it's about where we are right now, like 2026, where you're sitting, relationships that you're building with these big spirits, whether they're big space galaxy spirits or they're big, tiny little plant, but they're still big spirits that are showing up in your chamomile tea.
Yeah. Like we love what Hildegard has told us and written about. And we have that knowledge, but like, the earth has changed. A lot of things have changed. And do you feel like if you're communing with the plants, like you can ask and kind of ask and receive information, like what, just about astrology, right? Or like, what are you? Or how do you want me to work with you? And like, is that mercurial? Is that saturnial? Like, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a reading called Plant and Planet Devotion, and the whole point is to get to know one of your planets via a plant. And so we do like a deep dive on that planet, but also like do divination / talk to my own spirit people about like a particular plant for this person that it has to do with that planet that can become like an ally in them getting to know that part of their chart and that planet in general. And one of the things I often am teaching in those sessions is not just like astrological information or plant information, for people who are less comfortable, because I meet with people of all different experience types. For people, some people meet with me and they're like, oh, I know how to talk to not humans. I'm like, golden, great. But some people are not at all sure, and there is no real reason for someone who was raised in the dominant culture in the US to know how to do that or feel comfortable doing that. And so we talk about how, and part of what I tell people is like, if you're not sure, you can just ask. And it's like it sounds really simple.
Yeah.
And it's not, because communing with something that speaks a very different language to you is hard. But I do think that's the best way to find out, is just to talk to them.
Yeah. And I love I love kitchen witchery and like the idea of maybe like taking or to deepen the devotion of the plant and planet by having a physical application to it, or, whether it's a food you're creating using herbs, or if you're making your own deodorant using specific herbs, or a tincture, right? And in ingesting it that way, or even just like a room spray or a body spray, however you can to incorporate or deepen the relationship to the herb and the planet. And I'm inspired to do that now.
Yeah. Yeah. Taste is one of the main ways that I commune with plants.
Yeah.
Probably Taurus stuff maybe, but I I think that I remember the first time I ever communed with a plant deliberately, and it was sort of semi-deliberate. I was supposed to be doing, this is very common in herb schools, to do like a plant of the week or a plant of the month, where you pick a plant and you do everything you can possibly do with it. And it's like your buddy. It's like how you were with Tulsi. And you're like, how is my body changed? How has my health changed, if any? Do I notice anything? Do I not notice anything? Any energetic stuff, whatever. And I sat down with wood betony, just like a tea of wood betony. And I sipped it, and I got like physical sensations from the tea, the flavors, of course, but then also like sensations and images. And I was like, whoa, because that was very new for me. And that was another way that like, and I was very like, I'm going to be a scientific herbalist. I don't get any of this woo stuff, like it was, and the plants were like, joke's on you. So that didn't last very long. But not to say that I don't incorporate like scientific papers into my research, but I think I was coming in quite haughty and biased and superior about sort of like the hippy dippy stuff that I thought was silly.
That's great.
And the plants had other ideas about how that was going to go. But I think like spending time in those ways that aren't just like intellectualizing, which is where I often want to go. I often want to go straight to research, straight to academic stuff. Just like imbibing, making, gardening, this type of stuff is so, so important for getting to know plants. You don't have to do all of it, but like some of the stuff that isn't just like reading and thinking in a discursive way is really, really useful.
Yeah, embody it. Do you have some, I don't want to say favorites, but some maybe deeper connections to any specific plants that you've maybe had like really deep messages or mystical experiences with?
Yes. I would say strawberry is really, really important to me.
Yeah.
I spent a summer just completely ensorcelled by strawberry. And I wrote like a 37-page. I call it a zine. It's not a zine. People who make zines should get credit for what they do with zines. This is just like a small this is just a PDF, okay? It's a PDF. It just like, strawberry just like took me everywhere. I was talking about Othello and strawberry farming and like stories from some folklore that have to do with like the fairy tales having to do with strawberry. And I was talking about queer theory, and it was just like, it just took me on such a beautiful ride, and it kept just showing up at these like really precious and beautiful moments, just like saying hello. Plants really like it when you like, plants and planets really like it when you give them attention. And they will give you gifts for paying attention, for like giving them visibility and the spotlight, I've learned.
And strawberries in the Rosacea fam, right?
Yeah, so it's a Venus plant. Not all of the rosaceas are Venus, as blackberry is an example, in my opinion. But a lot of them are Venus. Are Venus plants. Sorry, I just smacked my headphones. So strawberry is very important to me. Catnip, which is a Mercury plant, is super important to me. Ivy, which is a Saturn plant, but it has really strong ties to Dionysus and Ariadne, is another really important plant to me. I think those are my main three. Rose also. Just rose forever, especially beach rose.
Forever. Ooh, what's beach rose?
It's I'm pretty sure it's native to, I haven't done a monograph on it. I've never approached it from like an intellectual perspective, but it lines the coast where my grandparents lived when I was a kid. And I just have like a, as old as childhood, like friendship with that. They have like, their thorns are like so sharp and many, like you can't even touch the stalk. There's no space. It's all thorn, but it's a 5-petal bright pink with like a burst of yellow in the middle. And and it's just like a long, gray sand, like the little itty bitty strip of New Hampshire that has beach. And I love them so much. They're not only there, but that's where I know them from. And they're very important to me.
That's so beautiful.
There's a fixed star connected to ivy that you've written about.
Yeah,
and I'm not allowed to know their name. That's where my Venus and Pluto are, and my midheaven.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's why they're like, you don't deserve this yet. You need to get to know Venus and Pluto first or something. I don't know what's happening.
Well, I have a really hard time with the idea of Venus ever telling you don't deserve something, but I understand the fact that there's something that's getting blocked. Yes, ivy has, along with rosemary, have a very old association with the Alpha star in the constellation Corona Borealis, which is the crown of Ariadne, Dionysus's wife. I mean, she's famous for being Dionysus's wife. She's so much more than that. I love her so much. But that star, that Alpha star, is called Alphecca.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I have a very close relationship with that star. I love it tremendously. But that's part of the Ivy Dionysus. That's like a whole loop-de-loop of stuff that is special to me.
Can you tell us about Alphecca?
Oh, sure. Let's see. So Alphecca is located in, it's projected to like around the middle of Scorpio, which is, I'm guessing, where you're. It's like, I think 12 degrees is its spot at the moment. And it can also be in someone's chart, even if they have nothing, like it's in my chart. And I have nothing in Scorpio other than Pluto. And because it can come through something called parans or a variety of other fixed star techniques. But Alphecca, this is a star that is associated with, it's that I love her and I don't want to accidentally talk about her for like 30 minutes. So I'm trying to like make it concise. That's why I'm pausing.
We've got time.
It's like dance, mazes, flowers, perfume, parades, like not like a town parade, like a procession of people dancing, like Maenads, for example. There's like a charm and an ability to like move through social spaces that Alphecca confers on people. She's sometimes associated with friendship, like being able to make friends with people. And there's this weird thing with that star where like the talismanic magic is really interesting because the way that if you make a talisman about a fixed star, it's supposed to give you certain virtues or like nice things people want. But like what people thought was valuable and virtuous and nice depends so much on the time period and the culture. And one of the things that people said the Alphecca talisman would give you, if you were to like sort of catch this star in a magical object and like wear it, was chastity, which is not my experience of her at all. She's a lust bucket and I love her for it.
Lust bucket.
And she likes cake and treats. She's a queen. But I do think that she knows how to show up a certain way, which might be some of that like chastity as in belonging to oneself and not necessarily like in that Virgo virgin kind of way versus like literal virginity. And I think also there's a sense of like etiquette and decorum and knowing how to handle yourself, but also she can totally party. She can do both.
Yeah.
She is married to the god of wine and ecstasy, and he picked her out when she was heartbroken and just showed up and was like, how about something different? When she was, okay, let's try that instead. And not every star is perfectly described by their like, Greco-Roman myth, but I find that Ariadne and Alphecca have a really, really tight bond.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot about her that I like. But if you ever want to, Marcus Manilius has one of the most beautiful passages about Alphecca. It's so good. I can pull it up if you want, but I think you should when you're ready, read it to yourself. It's beautiful.
When I'm permitted.
Yeah.
I love Ariadne because she's one of the only female lowercase g gods who's treated well when married.
Yes.
Yeah. And also treats her spouse well.
Yes. There are like some stray stories about them getting into spats or Dionysus sort of like stepping out on her, but it's minimal compared to the usual.
Really?
And she's mistress of the labyrinth. She's the one who leads us in and out of, I think so much of her mysteries have to do with like going into spirit realms and coming out safely because she has the thread that pulls you back. Yeah.
You said rosemary and ivy? Okay. All right. I'm going to go find myself some ivy and talk to it. See if I have permission.
Are there other uses for ivy besides like, are there like some clinical uses of it? Or is it not really used in that way?
I'm pretty sure there are, but I don't know them. I haven't worked with ivy in that way. I don't know. I know like from a planetary perspective, it's a Saturn plant and it is like energetically cold,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I'm not actually sure.
Mm-hmm.
There are some plants that I have tried not to learn about their materia medica because it's almost like one way for me to honor them is to learn all about them, everything that I possibly can. And some of them, it's like, I'll be more present with you if I don't do the academic deep dive that I'm prone to doing. So Ivy and I will have our moment when I finally like write up a monograph about Ivy. But for now, I've been sort of putting it off. So I don't actually know.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
that.
I would love to read that monograph. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like we've experienced worlds in this moment.
I know.
I already feel ready to like just journal and research everything that we just discussed. But I just want to thank you so much for giving us your time and energy, your years of experience with this, and sharing it with our community in this way. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. You made it so easy.
Do
Love
you?
talking to a Mercury ruled person for sure.
I know, right? For everybody listening, are there ways that we can interact with you and your work, or what's kind of coming up next for you? If there's any projects you want to talk about or anything that you're doing, we just want to know how we can be friends with you.
Oh yeah.
See you on the internet.
Come find me on the internet. In terms of projects that exist right now are currently under wraps, but there are other things. So I have booking availability if people want to come by for a reading of I have a bunch of different types, and including the plant and planet stuff and the 5th house stuff and the star stuff. I also do 11th house stuff. So for your Venus that's over there, because you can make stuff, but then there's also all the fears around sharing it. There's like gotta handle that part too. So and that you can find all my information at my website, which is third spelled out -sister, thirdsister.com. And then I'm on Instagram at my first name, Meg.thirdsister. And I also do quite a bit of writing. Right now it lives on Substack. Regrettably, I don't know if it'll stay on Substack, but listen, it's a good platform in a lot of ways, but I also am just like, geez, like it's a struggle, man. Like to try to find anything that's remotely ethical to do on the internet. I mean, I'm also on Instagram, like it's meta. What am I going to do?
Right.
But anyway, I am on Substack at The Gleaming Feast. That's the name of my writing space. And lots of stuff there about all of this. And
can we read your zine about strawberries?
Yes, that is on my website.
Really? Oh,
yes.
Good.
It's under store. There's like a place to download like classes and workshops and guidebooks and also that zine.
Love it.
Yeah.
So exciting. Okay, good. Because I definitely need that in my life. Yes.
It was so fun to write. I love writing. It's a huge part of what I do, but I feel like the platonic ideal of writing was like getting to do that project and work so closely with Strawberry. It was so special. Yes. So, I think that's all my stuff.
Yay.
Awesome. So we'll put all the links in the show notes or the post for Substack for anyone who's listening. Find it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye.
Thank you for joining us for Parts and Charts, the IFS and Astrology podcast. If something sparked insight or resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you.
No, really, we're here to make friends. Reach out to us. Leave a comment, subscribe, and if you feel called, share this episode with someone you care about. Or, if you want to work with us one-on-one and go deeper with this work, check the link in the show notes for how to find us.
Until next time, may all of you feel a part of the family.